Welcome back, Mr. Bueller. Monday night against the Miami Marlins. Walker Bueller makes his return to a big league hill for the first time since, what was it, May 2022 or June 2022?
June, I think,
June. Dude,
22 months or something like that.
let's start with that. How's that going to feel? I know you haven't done it yet, but holy shit, man. Welcome back.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's exciting. Obviously, we've kind of had a lengthy rehab. So six rehab starts, I think, might be a new record, but no, it's good. I mean, trying to kind of get some things under control and figure some things out and hopefully get a little, big league boost and throw a little harder. But no, I'm excited.
I don't envy you at all for going through your rehab in the PCL. Like,
Yeah.
I had a Wednesday day game. And I go home and I'm like, I can't wait to watch Walker tonight. And you're in Albuquerque. And I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, man. It's like zero gravity meets Coors. What were you trying to feel throughout that rehab assignment?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I've played in Coors a decent amount, so kind of a good practice run for that, I guess. But no, Albuquerque's it's an interesting place to play high level baseball, I think. But no, it's good, man. I mean, it is what it is. You kind of, all the spin rate and stuff and all of that we kind of hyper focus on. You can't really do that in Albuquerque. It just is never going to be good. So try and go out and make some pitches and, they put some good swings on balls and whatnot, but, get out of it. You'll be a little bit sore after that. There's just the lack of oxygen and whatnot. So, try and get out of that one clean and had my last one felt good. So, kind of a good little, you know, hamstring, I guess, to kind of learn from.
I was going to ask that. Was it almost like a good challenge going into that next outing because you end up going 5 innings, which was the most that you had thrown in that last rehab outing of all the six that you mentioned. And it was less pitches, but still just being able to have the up downs and one extra one there. Was doing it in Albuquerque kind of the best test for you, I guess, from a physical standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, physically it's just different. I think the ball acts kind of weird there. Certain pitches that I throw don't really move right there. My two-seamer cuts every time. And so, you kind of lose some of the arsenal and have to try and do some things a little bit more predictable and make some pitches. So that plus, the ABS, that was my second time on that. So that's
Yeah.
its own deal. It's kind of an interesting deal, but no, all in all, I'm excited to be back and excited to be back in the pros.
I want to spend some time on that, on the ABS,
Yeah, yeah,
because
he was
I'm
not going to get away with bringing that up and,
yeah,
and just letting it go. He was going to
no,
get a follow up on that one.
no, we need 5 minutes on the ABS here because I just called Skeens and Manoa, and I just watched Manoa react to the ABS system. I'm watching Skeens react to the ABS system too, and like he knows it, like he's here. Arelvis Martinez got rung up on a pitch that like Rondell had to reach for like that, and
Yeah.
he stood there and like looked at the umpire, and the umpire said, "Dude," and then he just pointed to his earpiece, like, "What do you want me to
Yeah.
do?" Like, what is your gripe with the full ABS? And the challenge system, I think, is a really good thing, and we've talked about that on this
Yeah.
show. But like, what's your gripe with the fully automated zone?
Obviously, like the idea is that it's consistent and the idea is that it kind of doesn't make mistakes. I know the game in Albuquerque, I think there was like 8 or 9 guys that pitched in that game, and there was like two of us that were over 50% strikes, which for nine like high level professional baseball players, like that probably doesn't happen very often. So I think that's kind of the first piece of evidence. Talking to guys, they said last year there was like no up, like no top half of the zone. This year that's definitely in the ABS. It's higher. I felt like in both, all 3 times that it was kind of not actually on the plate. It was like a little bit over. I don't know kind of what standard they're being held to in terms of how they're set up, or if there's like different arm angles that they perceive the ball differently or whatnot. Um, Other great, yeah. I mean, I think the challenge system is actually pretty good. I tried to challenge a pitch in the first ABS because I didn't know we were on the ABS, so the whole dugout was laughing at me for the other team. But yeah, it's just interesting. really makes you feel like you have to throw everything down the middle and kind of hope that it hits a thing. But the other thing that I really didn't like about it, and it's not really the system, it's just when it's on the board, it'll show you the outline of the zone and then where the ball is, and it's really not super representative of it. But the worst part of it is that it has like a line that like shows you where the ball went, and it's not actually indicative of what happened. So it's like weird kind of mentally. If you see slider and it's going the other way, like it just kind of messes with you, I feel like. That may be like a mentally weak thing to say, but it's just weird to see like I threw a slider, I know it went like this and it's represented the other way. And so I don't know. I just think it's a little, it just never, from what I've seen, if this is like the second or third iteration of it, like they're going to have a very tough time getting to anything that's very representative of what umpiring should be.
Yeah, the thing that I always say about it, at least from what the feedback I heard in low A, and then now people like yourself in triple A's, it just seems like it's just not near where it needs to be put out in a Major League Baseball setting. And I feel like the grass is always greener type of thing. You get bad calls from an ump, and I think you're saying, oh, well, we need those robo umps and things like that. Do you feel like it's something that pitchers could also abuse as well? I think Lance Lynn had teased that and talked about that a little bit on Foul Territory, where like kind of once you start to learn where it can cross and things like that and the nuances to it, could it be something that ends up swinging back in the pitcher's favor too, once you guys start to really iron out the intricacies of how the zone works?
Yeah, I mean, I think year to year you've seen like the different changes in it from talking to the guys that were there last year and this year, like it is completely different. So I'm sure there are like ways to kind of play it. Um, I think it's interesting just however you're going to measure it from guy to guy, different shapes and size hitters, I think is interesting. I think actually representing like a perfect pitch from me where I'm on the first base side or a guy who's on the third base side, where those actually cross to be like perfectly down away fastballs, for example, like the entry point of that is drastically different. I think pitcher's perception and umpire's perception of that of where the ball crosses or where like the catcher catches it, blah blah blah, like the different ways. Like these balls are moving hard and they're moving different ways. Like where's like kind of that barrier of like when I see a ball in this area at this time. I just think there's a human element to all of that stuff that kind of can't be simulated. Obviously, with the TrackMan and stuff like that, you can see certain things, but my idea has kind of always been that you give these umpires like a buzzer for the first couple innings, and it'll buzz them if they called a pitch incorrectly according to TrackMan to kind of give them like a bearing of where they're at, and then after that, you just kind of let it go as it is, but you give them a little bit of feedback. I think that's probably as close as I would ever be like super comfortable with kind of machine interference in this thing. Even the challenge system, I think is interesting because if you challenge something, like I like it when it's kind of a fun thing. It goes on the board. It's a lot like the tennis serve kind of little bit of a show thing. But even then, if it's not, if we don't know that it's representative, like you're kind of stuck like hoping on a machine that it, but in that case, I kind of think that it's almost like you get 5 of them in a game and that's it, whether you're right or wrong. So you potentially save them for late in the games, but then you're going to have games decided by some arbitrary system. I don't know. I just think I think the human element is so big, whether that's, everyone says that and they're talking about like missed calls, right? Like I think the human element of understanding these like weird angles or certain pitches and stuff is the human element that is like positive, right? Obviously there's people that have bad days and whatnot, but for the most part, I think when you look at balls and strikes and the way the game's played, like largely major league umpires at the standard, they're about as good at their job as anybody is in the world. And, there's a few that aren't as good or up to that standard. And I think Scherzer's idea on that and having some sort of relegation process of like the bottom 10 or bottom 10% or whatever, kind of being more like we're treated, where if you perform, you stay, if you don't, you go down. Like I think that's great. I just, the way that it's set up now, like these umpires going to AAA isn't going to help them because half the games they're not even umpiring, right? So I think it gets really tough.
Exactly. I want to hang on that for a moment, but the buzzer idea, Aram, did Walker not just describe a shot collar for umpires?
Yeah, you
Pretty
can
much.
condition them into, recalibrating to the zone.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
that.
well, the other thing, man, like when we look at the iPads, we used to get a zone, right? And whatever zone they represented, we were telling. I would always tell umpires like, "Hey, I'll go look at it. I'll let you know in the first couple innings to try and get everyone on the same page." But now, like that zone isn't on our iPads because it became so like, "Hey, man, I looked at it," and I think it's hard because some people get really emotional about it, and I get mad like when I throw. But I typically, whenever I try and say something to them, it like we're working with them. They're working too, like they're trying to perform, and so they typically want to know like if you have a reputation for being pretty honest about that with them, then they'll be receptive. So if you can take all that emotion out of it and just have kind of an arbitrary system that's telling you like, hey, you're on it or you're not, I think it's kind of beneficial for everyone.
For sure. One of the things that I've kind of settled on, and I'm on year 3 of watching this full ABS, is it takes away, and I was trying to figure out like the right way to say the human element of umpiring, because human element accounts for human error, and
Yeah.
that's what I feel like baseball is trying to get rid of. But it doesn't account for the malleability that a zone should have throughout the course of a game for an individual pitcher.
Mhm.
Maddox would not be good with the full ABS system because he'd be missing the lower outside corner time and time again. He'd be pissed, and then he'd move it right over the plate. And like, it's crazy to me that they're not accounting for the art form and the art form of catching too. And I know that we've talked about that. And Will Smith has worked really hard, and Barnes has worked really hard, and even a guy like Fiducia. Did you talk to any of the minor league catchers with the Dodgers when you were doing this? And it's like, hey, how do you feel in terms of a defensive catcher? Like, do you feel like you're being almost disvalued with the ABS system?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be hard to say that they aren't being devalued just because like it's not even that like, oh, it's not as important. It's like irrelevant in that system, right? Like stop the ball is like kind of all they have to do. Um, and largely guys at the upper level, like minor leagues and in the big leagues, like don't really have a problem catching a baseball, right? So um yeah, I think it's difficult. I think in general, like it's another representation that like they want more offense. Like if you can get guys that don't really have to do all of this stuff that they would previously, maybe that you can have more offensive minded guys, whatever. But no, I mean, I think catching at a high level, framing at a high level is such an important skill, and it's so valuable. Like you look in the playoffs, there's largely not many guys catching that can't frame. Like they're big pitches. You have to be able to present 98% of these pitches really well to keep your umpire engaged and all of these things. And yeah, there's still the element of like guys earn certain strike zones. And I don't mean kind of the old school way of like, oh, you get, like in high school, you throw a couple pitches down away and then you start like creeping out. Like that's largely how it used to be. But I think nowadays it's more like if you're consistently in the zone, you're going to get more margin for error and you're not going to spray the ball all over the place. Like from an offensive standpoint, I remember when I hit, which I was never very good, but if a guy's like all over the place and then throws like a perfect pitch, they're going to get it on ABS when like they've sprayed it everywhere. They probably shouldn't get that like,
Yep.
margin for error or that like, level of doubt or whatever you would call it. So, yeah, all of that comes to like human element, experienced umpires, guys that know the game, guys that know the way the game is played in the major leagues, and it's just a machine can't do it.
So I wanted to just ask you about kind of rejoining now this Dodgers team that I know you've been around, you've been throwing, in LA, but now just really being able to be a part of it and contribute. How much excitement have you just kind of built up now as you also go away and do your rehab assignments, but then tune back in and watch how talented this team is, as we've been talking about since the offseason? Like how excited are you from that angle as well, beyond just yourself and getting back on the mound?
Yeah, I mean, being part of a team like ours is always been so cool and so important. You think of kind of the guys that I've played with previously and pitched with and been in the rotation with, and now it's kind of a whole new group, and so I'm looking forward to that. I think for me, like the biggest thing, like I hope I can go and perform and be really good to try and like help lead this staff. Like me and Clayton have been there the longest, I think, of all the guys on our staff, and to get both of us back at some point this year, I'm really looking forward to. And obviously from afar, it's been really fun to watch these guys. We had a really good road trip from a starting pitching standpoint, and Glass and Yamamoto have both been really good. And I think everybody that plays at our level like wants to be in a rotation where everyone pushes each other, and I've certainly benefited from having guys before and after me be really, really good before. So I hope I can kind of fit into that machine and help push some of these guys as well.
I think you were done before the bees on Tuesday night. Did you catch any of the bee stuff? Were you watching that on your phone or on TV or
No,
anything?
I did hear about that. It's kind of a wild deal. I don't know how, like, did they just move in like that day? Like, you know what
That
I
was
mean?
my question too. I have no idea, but did you see like the showmanship from the bee guy, like kind of flicking his
Yeah,
back and doing the
he got a tops card out of that. I think he did pretty well for himself.
he's sick. I saw a 1 of 1 from the bee guy. Arm, you gonna try and pull
No.
that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that with my luck though, that's gonna be the one like 1 of 1 that I'll ever end up actually
No.
pulling is the B guy.
So
But
we've talked about this a little bit though. Does your dad have your 1 of 1? I know your dad loves collecting your
Mhm.
cards.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of like one of ones. He has a few of them, I'm sure. Yeah, he's gotten really big into it. I think that investment kind of deflated. It kind of had a little '08 crash to it in the past couple of years, but I think he was sitting pretty there for a minute.
We love the self-deprecation.
Oh, the value's going back up though now that you're back and just building off of like wanting to help the ball club out and things like that. What about like individually? Of course, you want to go out there, dominate, and you're a competitor like with the best of them. But also, how do you kind of manage the being realistic and not trying to set yourself up for disappointment and say like, oh, I'm going to go out there and be, Cy Young, Walker Buehler versus, hey, I need to have like a goal in mind here and build up. How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I mean, at some point you go through these rehabs and it's largely about like how you feel and how the ball's coming out and whatever. And performance is probably secondary. Like you want to go be good and whatever, but like being great in rehab starts doesn't mean you're going to be great when you get back, and being horrible doesn't mean you're going to be horrible. So I think kind of that shift to just going and trying to perform and throwing 5 innings and getting your team into the game, not being a hindrance. I think when you stare down kind of a 25 or whatever 26-man roster, and you're a piece of that, and there's a lot of ebb and flow to like guys throwing a lot of innings and things like that, like there's just kind of different pressures. Obviously in AAA you don't want to like hamper everybody, but it's just kind of more of it's just less of a focus, I think. And for me, having kind of how I've focused on throwing innings and making every start and doing things like that, I think it'll be really fun for me to kind of be back in that and be able to kind of shift my focus that way.
So we last talked to you after you threw against Albuquerque and OKC, and it was 4 2/3, 2 hits, no runs. You struck out 6, didn't walk anybody. And like those results are awesome. And that is
Mhm.
what made Twitter. It was like, oh, like Walker's back, let's go. And I remember you were saying, like, yeah, the results look good, but I have a long way to go before I feel ready to rejoin the Dodger rotation. And I feel like
Mhm.
you're speaking to that exact sentiment. What
Mhm.
steps have you taken since that one, aside from that ball that hit your knuckle and you were
Yeah.
fine after Rancho? But like, what steps have you taken from that point when you told us that to right now to be fully ready to go?
Yeah, I mean the next one in Oklahoma City, I walked a bunch of guys. I think I was against whatever the AAA for the Giants is.
Yeah,
But
Sacramento.
my stuff numbers wise was significantly better. So you start kind of like piecing these little things together, like, oh, I performed okay, didn't feel that good. Now I felt good, didn't perform, and start trying to like, set up these new guardrails, right, and kind of lock everything back in. And my stuff wasn't incredible the other day, but there were some good throws and there were some bad throws, and so but I performed all right. And you kind of think about, I had a good one, and then the next time my stuff ticked up, and so you're kind of hoping for that. But at the end of the day, like there's something about pitching in a major league ballpark and the big lights and 7 o'clock start in LA that it gets you going a little bit, and you kind of in some way rely on that. It's hard to physically, it's hard to get your arm to do certain things that it takes to throw really hard and to throw hard and know where it's going. And so, adrenaline's a big part of that. And we're kind of hoping that the adrenaline gets me to a different place, and then you can kind of start holding that because you do it every week. And so yeah, I mean it's obviously a big step getting back, but I'm really, excited for it to be part of the team again, but also physically there's some things that happen in the big leagues that you can't really simulate, and hopefully those adaptations are good.
The last couple outings, it seemed like the secondaries were there for you a lot more. I mean, the
Yeah.
cutter, you got some really ugly swings on that, and the curveball especially as well. Did you feel like you found something those last couple outings just from a feel perspective? And how do you feel like pitch by pitch, because you're a guy that's going to mix so many different pitches in there? Like, how do those all feel for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the cutter and the curveball are kind of always been, the two things. Obviously, there for a while, I was throwing like a big sweepy slider, and right now, just from kind of a nerdy perspective, it's not hard enough to be super effective. So you kind of just keep throwing it and then hope that when you get back, you get that little uptick in velo, and it kind of gets into that like effective range. I think the analytic stuff, the easy way to explain it is like you can take certain movement on a pitch, and if you can get it in these certain velo ranges, then you believe it can be successful. And if you can't get certain movement in certain velos, then like the expectation is that major league hitters will hit it hard. And so my slider right now is not quite as hard as I would want it to be, but I'm still going to throw it and try and get it to where I want it. And but yeah, I mean, when your velo is not as good, like for me, the cutter is super effective, kind of regardless of velo. It'll get a little bit bigger as it gets slower, and so it kind of works out that way. And but yeah, I think the pitch mix will change probably a little bit, hopefully, as velo goes up. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see how it goes.
So is that a pitch, that cutter that you said it's always kind of been there for you, and it can get bigger as it's a little bit slower and then shorter and harder? Is that a pitch that you could see yourself, maybe you already do it, like manipulate even more so now, that, if the slider isn't where you want it to be, maybe having two different iterations of that cutter?
Yeah, I've always kind of thrown a different one to righties and lefties, but throughout this rehab process, you just kind of look at your strengths and your weaknesses and whatever, and that ability to kind of make the cutter act like two or three different throws
Mhm.
has always been big for me, and something that trying to get more comfortable throwing it more to righties, and also throwing a little bit depthier one to lefties under a little bit. So yeah, I mean that's kind of always been, I think, what I've done well is be able to manipulate the ball going from right to left in different shapes. And so you get bored and try stuff and hope it works out. And yeah, that's probably definitely been my best pitch in these rehabs. So but it's always different in the big leagues too. You can't just run on one pitch really, especially when it's an 88-mile-an-hour cutter.
When do you get bored? Spring training, like dog days, off season? When is it that you're like, you know what? Let's try something new.
I mean, I'll try stuff during the season. I'll have a different slider grip in 2 weeks than I do today. But no, I mean, I just can be an idiot with this stuff, and so for 21 months I've been trying different stuff. But we'll see. We'll figure it out.
What's the best thing you've tried? Have you gone knuckle at all? Like, have you
No,
have you been trying? No.
no, no knuckleball for me. You got to be really like mentally stable to throw that pitch, and that's just not really kind of where I'm at. So um, yeah, I don't think that one's going to work out for me.
Okay, fair. Weirdest thing you've done. What have you tried?
I mean, you just start different grips and different this and different ways to throw things. And, even when I was healthy, I've thrown bullpens to the wrong plate before, which is an interesting one. So, there's two mounds and two plates. You kind of flip flop them so that you feel like you're throwing it this way, then you feel like you're really across and trying to find the center and like what you want. So things get a little squirrely regardless of if you're hurt or not.
Love that. Okay.
I don't have the impulse control either to like not do stuff like that. So, like Clayton, I've never seen do anything like that. He's just so mentally kind of like this that he does the same things over and over and over and then figures it out. And I gotta ride some weird roller coasters to kind of find that center lane.
Gets you to a
So
good end result.
Yeah.
going into this first start too, I'm sure it'll be kind of a feel and touch and go thing, but what are some of the, do you have any like loose parameters of what your workload might be? And I know you mentioned the 5 innings, like that being kind of the goal the first time out. Do you have any idea of what you might progress to, and any loose idea?
No, I mean, largely the idea was to come back. We kind of set this schedule and, I probably beat it by one start or one start worth a day. I talked about mid-May
Yeah.
kind of forever and at least internally and set up everything to kind of work out the way it did. And, I think largely I just want to kind of be treated like one of our guys. Obviously, we're on kind of the 6 day thing and, none of our guys are going to go 120, right? So I don't think that's the concern, but, I'd like to be able to throw 90 to 100 pitches and kind of be pretty standard at the end of the year. I think, my rookie year, we kind of went 75, 80 pitches for the first half and then kind of figured it out. And I don't think that's like super far off, but, I've thrown almost 80 pitches, 5 innings, something like that. So, I think we'll probably be in that ballpark.
You were at 86 in
Yeah.
Albuquerque, and then you were at 75 against Salt Lake too. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I love that. We were just talking about it, about 40 people there in a suite at Dodger Stadium. Who's coming? Is Finley coming for the first time?
Finley has been to the field. She came bobblehead day and opening day, but this will be her first one with me actually playing.
Come on, man. Does that give you goosebumps?
Yeah, I'm excited. We got her little outfit picked out. We've got a full Southern outfit, so she's going to look like a little picnic table. But no, she'll be excited.
Have you thought about getting the Christian use check on Finley? Have you thought about like maybe,
Ooh,
a baby coat or something?
I don't know about that. Well, the weather's been kind of weird here, but typically we don't need a coat until playoff time. So uh,
You can get a
maybe
baby
if
shirt.
we make the playoffs. No, then it's not the full thing. Like that woman makes the full thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good call.
And I mean, 40 people, how much just outreach has there been since the date was announced? I mean, how many people must be just so jazzed up for you and pumped up in your corner? I mean, we know we are, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's got to be so many people that are just so pumped. It's got to almost feel like your big league debut, like when everyone's pouring in and, giving
Yeah.
you this outpouring, knowing, how far you've come and how hard you've worked to get here.
Should we play the
Yeah. I mean,
unread
I
text
was
game? Sorry, should we play the unread text game real quick? How many unread texts you got right now
on my phone,
on your phone? There had to be an outlier.
134.
134?
Yeah.
Arm, what are you at?
Oh, well, I'm just bad. I'm just not good with it. He has a way better reason why. 185, but that's just because I'm nuts and just like
Good.
don't keep up well. But
I'm
what
at
do you
30.
normally stay at? That's got to be a bump up from normal. I imagine you got to have so many people.
No, I stay there about 100 probably. I'm not great with it anyway. But no, I mean I have a great, group support system, whatever you want to call it, and people kind of that I've met throughout the years as well as everyone that I grew up with and from home and a few people are flying out from back home and so that'll be fun to see them and yeah, we got a couple first time LA visitors, which will be cool. So yeah, we'll have some people around.
We can't let you go without a derby prediction. I haven't done my research yet. It's Thursday. I'll sit down
Okay.
on Friday morning and do my research. Who
Yeah.
am I going with?
I got sent the card this morning or the form.
God, that was coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mystic Dan is 20 to 1. Mystic Dan is a great name. Fierceness is 5 to 2.
Yeah. My word is what I've heard is fierceness is obviously the one to beat. And people have the people that I know that are involved in this game have told me that Sierra Leone is the one that has a chance to beat him.
Okay.
But people are pretty on this fierceness horse.
Fierceness. Okay, I see 5 to 2 right now. So,
Hmm.
all right, that's fair. You going to get to watch it?
Um,
You guys have a
Yeah,
night
I
game
think
instead.
so. We typically watch it. We do a little. I'll be watching it for sure.
The last question I had, because I don't even know if we've asked this really, but like, what's your kind of pre-start routine in terms of, what it always has been in the past? And is it any different now after, the layoff and then getting back to it? Or are you going to try to do basically what you've always done before? Because if it ain't broke, then
Yeah.
fix it.
Well, it's been a long time since it actually really worked for me, right? In 22, I wasn't very good before, so we'll get back to it. The same guy will get me ready and whatnot that always has, and try and stick to it. But largely, it's like one of those things that kind of starts coming together when you're really doing it. It's hard to do everything the same in different environments and stuff like that. So we're kind of playing it by ear this first one, and then hopefully get back
And
into the whole thing.
and you're not a don't talk to me guy, right? Like on your pitch day, no, you're same as always kind of vibe. Try to treat it like the same day.
Yeah, I'm pretty full go on start day.
What time do you
Nice.
wake up? 7 o'clock local, first pitch.
Oh, I mean, it's all based on Finley. We wake up early now that Finley's around, so I'll be up. Maybe I can get a little nap in before I head to the field, but yeah, we're up pretty early these days.
Got you. We are amped to watch this thing, and I'm sure you're amped to get on the hill, man. Good for you.
Yep, all good.
Love it. We'll talk to you.
All right, sounds good, guys.